So you're thinking that you might want to go to college or perhaps have a personally and financially rewarding career. Well, so did the two high school students who were caught sexting, and the photos they were taking got out on the internet, went viral, and they were both charged with felonies, violations of various child pornography laws. So did the Duke grad who created the now infamous Duke PowerPoint, in which part of the title included the term horizontal academics. She was threatened with lawsuits, and that PowerPoint, perhaps one of the most viewed in history, will follow her wherever she goes. So did the UCLA undergrad who got tired of people talking in the library, went home, and in a, I guess, weak moment, posted a YouTube on video, which became known as the Asian Rant, and it's now been seen by over 1.6 million people. She chose to leave UCLA because her personal information was published, her family was threatened, she received death threats, and was ostracized by the community that she had been in college. Moreover, you all should know that an increasing number of admissions officers at colleges and universities, and also hiring personnel, are taking a good look at Google, are searching you on Google, to take a look at your digital footprint, whether you've been a good and solid digital citizen or not. In short, whether you like it or not, your digital history, which is going to follow you pretty much everywhere and basically is very, very hard to delete, will be there. So that's why I'm here to talk about cyber safety and social media with an eye toward your personal brand online and with an eye toward getting into college and having a personally and financially rewarding career. Let's talk about what drives this whole issue, and it's the nature of the content we are now creating as users, our user-generated content, whether we're creating it via text, email, Skype, Facebook, Tumblr, Google+, various apps. We are easily and quickly uploading to sites like YouTube content that we create. And it is not analog anymore, it is digital. Why is this so important? I covered the first argument on the constitutionality of the Constitutional Decency Act in the Supreme Court. It was heard in 1997. And I have to tell you that going back and listening to the oral arguments that I covered that day is very revealing. The justices had actually a pretty prescient insight into what the fundamental problem was going to become. They were dealing with pretty classic free expression in that case, and they were also dealing with obscenity and the protection for ISPs. But specifically, a couple of the justices talked about how when they were kids, they could walk down the sidewalk, and as all of us have done when we're kids, in fact adults, we said some pretty stupid things. But in the analog world, those sound waves go off, and they diminish, and they disappear. And they're not searchable, they're not traceable, they're not permanent, thank goodness. And that's one of the advantages that I grew up with that you don't have, because virtually everything that you write, that you photograph, that you generate online is digital. And what that means is it has an ongoing life, and it is very, very difficult to delete. So it's critical that we understand, whether you're in middle school, high school, or even college, this underpinning about digital content. The second thing that's critical to know these days is something about photography. In other words, the content we produce it's not just written, it's more and more of a video or photographic nature. Virtually every cell camera has a significant camera in it, 5 to 8 megapixels, maybe more. And of course you can also take video, and it can be uploaded in a nanosecond to YouTube or Vimeo or other sites. And the bottom line is what is it critical to know about photography these days? And what I tell people is, if you're not in the confines of your own home with the shutters down and the blinds drawn, you are in the public sphere, and you have most likely lost your right to privacy, because all of us know that virtually every cell camera and all the security cameras that we see, whether it's at the ATM, the convenience store, the grocery store, you name it, you're near where you live, perhaps even cameras in the street depending on the city you're in. We virtually are on film a good part of our days, and especially if we're caught behaving badly. And in many respects, I tell people, you know, as annoying as this is, it actually operates or can operate as a decent constraint on bad behavior. But the bottom line is, when you are out of your house, when you are out in public, you have virtually no expectation of privacy. Therefore, if you're acting badly, if you're inebriated, if you're on drugs, if you're doing stupid stuff, if you're getting naked in front of the camera on a beach in Daytona Beach at spring break, you can expect to find yourself online with the ramifications that follow that. So now that we've talked a little bit about both digital content and photography, we need to make a special note of what I'll just call for the moment mixed media. For example, a lot of kids say, well, you know, I was on Skype and, you know, we were in love and yes, we were exposing parts of our body that maybe we shouldn't have been, but I didn't think anybody could capture that. It was Skype. Well, of course they can. Among other things, they can get print screenshots. I mean, you can also simply video it with your camera cell phone. And so you should assume that anything you're doing online is searchable, traceable, and oops or oh my God, it's permanent. And that leads me to my meme. And whenever I talk, I focus on what I call the meme stop. Searchable, traceable, oops, or oh my God, it's permanent. So before you press the send button, before you press the submit button, take a moment, take a deep breath, stop, and think, is this content that you want to be virtually forever online and part of your digital footprint? Let's talk also a little bit here about views of privacy. I'm not a judgmental person, and there's a lot of different views about privacy. I think many of us who are, I'll say, just over the age of most millennials feel that we like a lot of our lives being private. I think a lot of younger people have a different concept of privacy, and they don't mind laying out a good part of their lives in photography and video, on Facebook timelines, on Tumblr, Google+, MySpace, YouTube, and so forth. But let's think a minute about the nature of privacy and how we feel about it at one age and how we might feel about it when we're applying to college or applying for a job. And right now I'll include all parents in this. I mean, I see parents just going crazy over putting pictures of their babies and their young children up on their Facebook site, videos up on YouTube, lovely to share them with their family, things up on Instagram and so forth. And the bottom line is, because that's going to be very difficult to actually get rid of, how do you think your child's going to feel about that when they enter the teenage years? Something to think about, something for all of us to focus on, our family's concept of privacy, and to inadvertently discuss how we as a family feel about that and the actions we're going to take and any commitments we're going to make to each other before we throw those videos and photos up online, which will pretty much be there cached on servers around the world, cloud, so forth, forever. Now that we've covered that stuff, let's talk about kind of some of the basic ways in which we use the cyber world, the online world. You know, of course, it's texting, it's emailing, it's Skyping. We use all kinds of apps on our smartphones and otherwise. We use services like Instagram, Pinterest, Foursquare, and so forth. And then, of course, the typical and huge sites like Facebook, Tumblr, YouTube, MySpace, Google+. Now, we are the users, we're posting this content, and these tools are made available to us for free, kind of. They're actually not free. These companies pretty ruthlessly data mine the users who generate this content. Sure, it's free to use their tools, but of course, they're using our data in varying ways according to their terms and conditions, or at least we hope, according to their terms and conditions, to gain revenue through advertising and so forth. So before you lay your life out on Facebook or Tumblr, Google+, YouTube, and so forth, again, I think it's a family and a personal decision both as to both privacy elements checking the terms of service, how easy is it to delete that account, how easy is it to delete photographs and so forth that you find when you're using these different kinds of services. So it's easy to create and post, and it's especially easy if you're tired, if it's late at night, if you are perhaps had a drink or two or been using some illegal drug substances and your defenses are down. And these are the times when, in particular, you need to remember the memes stop, because they can come back and haunt you very quickly. I remember back in during President Clinton's impeachment, one of the internet companies that I co-founded, I was on call that weekend as one of our managing directors, and I was contacted by our office staff in Chicago. And indeed, the Secret Service had contacted us because someone had made a threat against the president on one of our bulletin boards, and I had to scurry around, get all the relevant information, forward it on to the Secret Service, and pretty quickly they identified an individual in Alabama. They went and actually spoke with him, showed up at his front door, and he'd had a few too many drinks, and after an investigation, no charges were filed. The bottom line is, when you post content of any kind that can be threatening, or considered stalking, you can get yourself in a whole lot of trouble very, very quickly, because, remember my meme, it's searchable, traceable, and permanent. Let's talk about reputation management. Being a good digital citizen and creating a good digital footprint is a lot about